Why does everything feel so hollow? You have a job, maybe even one that others envy. You have people around you. You smile when expected, say the right things, nod when you should. But when you're alone, when the silence creeps in after the world stops asking things from you, there's just this dull ache, a sense that something's missing, a quiet scream that you can't quite put into words. You've asked yourself, why do I feel so empty? More times than you can count. And each time, it leaves you more lost than before. Because it doesn't make sense, does it? You've done everything right. You've tried being strong. You've tried being good. You've tried being useful. But none of it fills that void inside. Sometimes, it feels like you're living someone else's life. Like you're wearing a mask so tightly, you've forgotten what your own skin feels like underneath. You look back at old photos, not to remember but to search, to see if there was ever a version of you that wasn't this exhausted, this disconnected, this numb. You might think you're alone in this. You're not. Carl Jung, one of the most intuitive minds in psychology, once whispered a truth the world wasn't ready to hear, that the emptiness inside us isn't something we fix with more doing, more pleasing, more running. It's not a sign of failure. It's a call. A deep and primal call back to the parts of us we abandoned just to survive. In this video, we're not going to throw theories at you. We're not going to lecture you about dopamine or childhood trauma like you're another case to be solved. Number, this is for you, the listener with the quiet ache, the one who's kept going despite the emptiness. This is your mirror. This is your breath. This is your space to feel seen. And if you've ever felt like you're disappearing, like you're fading even in a crowded room, stay. Don't rush this. Let yourself listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart, with the parts of you that never got a voice, with the younger version of you still waiting to be found. If this speaks to something real in you, take a moment to breathe with me. And if it helps you feel less alone, share it. Someone else might need it just as much as you do. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Not because it helps me, but because sometimes we all need a reminder that our pain has a place, that we have a place. This isn't the kind of video you just watch. It's the kind that watches you back. There's a truth most people don't say out loud. Emptiness doesn't always come from lack. Sometimes it comes from abundance. You gave too much. You carried too much. You silenced yourself so often that now, when you try to listen inward, all you hear is static. Think about it. How many times have you laughed when you wanted to cry? How many times did you say, I'm fine, while inside you were unraveling? How many times did you choose peace over honesty? Because honesty might cost you the people you love. Slowly, piece by piece, you traded yourself away for safety, approval, love, until one day you wake up and realize there's nothing left in the room but echoes. Carl Jung believed that emptiness isn't an enemy. It's a messenger. It's the part of you that's still alive, still waiting, still calling you home. That hollow ache, that's not proof you're broken. It's proof you still long for wholeness. If you were truly gone inside, you wouldn't even notice the ache anymore. But you do. That means something in you is still fighting to be heard. And maybe this is the first sign of why you always feel empty. You were never truly allowed to be yourself. Maybe as a child, you learned to become what others wanted, the good one, the strong one, the quiet one. You shaped yourself into the outlines of what made others comfortable, but your true self, the messy, loud, fragile, glorious self, was tucked away in the shadows. And shadows do not die. They wait. This is why silence feels so heavy. Because the moment the world stops demanding, the moment the noise quiets down, your shadow self steps forward and whispers, "What about me?" You don't recognize that voice. It feels foreign, maybe even frightening. But deep down, you know it's yours. And ignoring it is what makes the emptiness expand. Here's the paradox. The more you run from the emptiness, the stronger it grows. The more you try to drown it out with distractions, scrolling, drinking, working, pleasing, the louder it becomes when the distractions fade. It doesn't want you to drown it. It wants you to listen. So let me ask you gently, when was the last time you sat with yourself? Without judgment, without needing to fix or improve, just listening. When was the last time you gave yourself the love you keep trying to earn from others? Stay with that question. Don't try to answer it right away. Just let it breathe inside you. Sometimes the answers arrive when you stop searching for them. There's a moment in life, maybe you felt it before, when you're surrounded by people, maybe even the ones you love most, and yet there's this piercing loneliness inside you. You laugh, you nod, you play along. On the outside, it looks like belonging, but inside, you feel like a ghost. It's not that no one sees you, it's that no one sees all of you. That's the second sign of why you feel empty. You've been starving for real connection, not surface-level presence. You've built entire relationships on fragments of yourself, hoping someone might catch a glimpse of the real you beneath the performance. And when they don't, the emptiness deepens. Because how can you feel whole if you've never been met in your wholeness? Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Think about that. It's not about how many people you have around you. It's about whether your soul has a voice in those spaces. If you've spent years hiding your truth just to keep the peace, you'll feel lonelier in a crowd than in solitude. Because the part of you that needs love the most has never been allowed to stand in the light. And yet, emptiness doesn't mean you're incapable of love or unworthy of being seen. It means you've been offering love in places that never had the capacity to return it. You pour yourself out like water. But if the vessels around you have cracks, it all leaks away, leaving you dry. That's not your failure. That's the ache of trying to bloom in barren soil. But here's the secret the emptiness carries. The soil is not only out there, it's within you. The connection you crave begins when you finally turn toward yourself. When you become curious about the parts you've silenced, when you let your own heart know, "I see you, I will not abandon you again." I know that sounds simple, maybe even impossible. But imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like to be truly met by yourself. To not wait for permission to exist, to not filter your truth for fear of rejection, to stop asking, "Am I too much?" and instead whisper, "I am enough," even when I am messy, loud, tender, scared. That kind of self-meeting, that's where the emptiness begins to soften. That's where loneliness starts to lose its grip. Because when you learn to stand in your own company without abandoning yourself, every other connection in your life shifts. You no longer chase scraps. You no longer beg for crumbs. You begin to attract the kind of presence that can hold you. Because you've learned to hold yourself. The emptiness isn't your punishment. It's your guide. It's pointing you back home. There's a heaviness you've carried for so long that you may not even recognize it anymore. It feels normal, ordinary, as if life was always meant to be lived with a quiet weight pressing on your chest. But beneath that weight is the third sign of why you feel empty. You've spent years betraying yourself just to survive. Think about the promises you've broken to yourself. The times you said, "I'll rest when I'm tired," but pushed harder instead. The times you whispered, "I'll never let them treat me like that again," only to go back because being mistreated felt safer than being alone. The moments you felt a truth rise in your throat, but swallowed it back because honesty might lead to rejection. Each time you turn away from your own needs, each time you abandon the voice inside you, you carve another hollow space within. And over time, those hollow spaces weave together into what feels like an endless void. Carl Jung believed that the parts of us we repress do not disappear. They wait, and while they wait, they darken. They become the emptiness that follows you into bed at night, the silence that feels unbearable, the ache you can't quite name. But here's what most people never realize. Emptiness is not simply absence. It's fullness waiting to be reclaimed. Every time you abandoned yourself, a fragment of you stayed behind, and the emptiness is filled with all those fragments calling to you, longing to return. This is why the distractions never work for long. You can buy new things, chase new highs, even change your entire life on the outside, but eventually, the hollowness seeps back in. Because the only thing that can fill the emptiness is the self you've been running from. And maybe this is why you're here, listening. Maybe a part of you knows you cannot keep living half alive. Maybe you're tired of giving away every drop of yourself and still feeling parched. Maybe you're finally ready to turn around and face the shadow that's been following you. To stop asking the world to heal wounds it never made. And instead, begin the slow, sacred work of healing with your own hands. Let me tell you something tender. Self-betrayal is not the end of your story. It is the reason you feel empty, yes, but it is also the invitation back to yourself. Because every time you chose silence instead of truth, giving instead of receiving, endurance instead of rest, you weren't weak. You were surviving, and survival is proof of strength. But survival is not the same as living. Now the emptiness asks you, do you want to keep surviving or do you want to live? Breathe that in. Let it sit with you. Because you deserve more than survival. You deserve a life that feels like yours. There's another truth, quieter but sharper, that cuts through the nights when sleep won't come. It's the fourth sign of why the emptiness never seems to leave. You've been measuring your worth by things that can vanish. Maybe it was achievements, the grades, the promotions, the titles. Every time you reached one, you thought, this is it, now I'll feel whole. But the high faded, and the hunger returned. Or maybe it was love, the attention, the affection, the way someone's eyes lit up when they saw you. For a moment, you felt like you mattered, but the moment passed, and the hollow ache echoed louder than before. Or maybe it was beauty, money, control, being the strong one, always the one others could lean on. But no matter how hard you clutched it, it never stayed. And each time it slipped away, you were left with that gnawing question, who am I without it? Carl Jung once spoke of this illusion that the self cannot be found in masks, roles, or possessions. Those things are fragile, and when we attach our entire being to them, we tie our worth to something that can be lost in an instant. The emptiness creeps in when life shakes those foundations, when what you thought defined you suddenly cracks. Because the truth is, you are not what you do. You are not what you earn. You are not the reflection in someone else's eyes. You are more ancient, more untouchable than that. But when you forget, the emptiness swallows you whole. And maybe that's why life keeps letting things slip through your fingers, not to punish you, but to remind you. To strip away the illusions, so you can find the one thing that cannot be taken. Your own self. That deep, untamed core beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the masks. But finding it means grieving. Grieving the years you spent chasing shadows. Grieving the love you thought would save you. Grieving the versions of yourself that you performed for others but never truly lived. And grief, as heavy as it is, has a strange power. It clears space. It makes room for something truer. The emptiness you fear so much might not be a curse at all. It might be the sacred clearing where the real you can finally step forward. So let me ask you again, when everything you cling to fades, when the applause stops, when the love withdraws, when the roles dissolve, what remains? That stillness, that essence, that quiet flame inside you. It has always been there, and it is waiting. There's a silence that follows you, isn't there? The kind that creeps in when the day is over and no one's asking you for anything. At first, you try to fill it music, television, scrolling until your eyes blur. But then the noise stops, and the silence grows teeth. That's when the fifth sign of why you feel empty reveals itself. You've been living cut off from your inner world. You see, when we were children, we dreamed in colors. We felt things with raw intensity. A song could break us open. A sunset could make us cry. Our imagination was endless. We built whole worlds inside us. But somewhere along the way, the world told you to be practical. Grow up. Stop being so sensitive. And piece by piece, you turn down the volume of your own soul. Now, instead of a symphony inside, you hear static. Instead of a garden, you feel a wasteland. Carl Jung called this the loss of connection with the soul, that the modern person risks becoming a shell when they lose the inner dialogue with their own depths. But let's drop the theory for a moment. Think about it in your own life. When was the last time you sat with yourself and really listened? Not to your tasks, not to your goals, not to the voice of judgment in your head, but to your heart's quiet whispers. When was the last time you asked your inner self what it wanted, instead of asking everyone else what they needed from you? The emptiness feels unbearable, not because it is void, but because it is full of voices you've ignored. The child in you who wanted to paint, the teenager who wanted to love fearlessly, the dreamer who wanted to see the world. They didn't vanish. They are still there, pacing behind the locked doors of your silence. And every time you drown yourself in distraction, their cries echo louder. But here's the tender truth. Reconnecting doesn't require grand gestures. It starts small, allowing yourself to feel sadness without shutting it down, letting joy bubble up without suspicion, picking up the pen, the brush, the song, the dream you once abandoned, whispering to yourself, "I haven't forgotten you. I want to know you again." And slowly, like thawed ground after a long winter, life begins to stir within you again. The emptiness softens into spaciousness. The silence becomes less threatening, more sacred, and you realize that what you feared all along was not the void but your own aliveness waiting to bloom. And then there's the wound you rarely speak of, maybe because even naming it feels too heavy. The sixth sign of why you feel empty. You carry unhealed pain that you've learned to numb instead of face. Somewhere in your past, something broke. Maybe it was the night you realized love could leave without warning. Maybe it was the childhood moments where your tears were called too much, or your needs were ignored because the adults around you were drowning in their own storms. Maybe it was betrayal, the kind that left you questioning if you could ever trust again. Whatever it was, you buried it. You told yourself, "I'm fine." You built a life on top of it, but pain that is buried alive doesn't die, it waits. And it waits inside you, disguised as emptiness. Carl Jung often wrote about the shadow, the part of us that holds what we reject, what we fear, what we can't bear to look at. And this is why the void feels so terrifying. It's not just nothingness you're facing. It's the echoes of every heartbreak, every rejection, every abandonment you told yourself didn't matter. And when the distractions fade, those echoes grow louder. But listen closely. That pain you carry isn't here to destroy you. It's here to remind you that you are still capable of feeling. That numbness isn't your natural state. That somewhere inside you, the part that was hurt is still alive, still tender, still longing for care. What you call emptiness might simply be grief with no outlet, love with no recipient, rage with no release. And I know facing it feels impossible. You've survived by keeping the lid shut, by pushing forward, by telling yourself it doesn't matter. But hasn't that survival also been the source of your exhaustion? Hasn't running from the wound been the very thing that keeps the emptiness growing? Healing doesn't mean erasing what happened. It means turning toward it with compassion, maybe for the first time, whispering to the younger you who still aches, "I believe you. I see you. I will not leave you behind anymore." It's messy. It's slow. It might even break you open before it puts you back together. But within that breaking, the emptiness shifts. It becomes fertile ground for truth, for love, for new life. So if you've ever wondered why the void inside you feels so endless, maybe it's because it holds all the unspoken chapters of your story. And maybe what you need isn't to escape it, but to finally read them, word by word, with gentleness. There's something else, something that hides in plain sight but quietly shapes your days. The seventh sign of why the emptiness lingers. You've been living by everyone else's script, and somewhere along the way, you lost your own. Think about it. From the time you were small, there were voices telling you what a good life should look like. Get the degree, find the partner, secure the job, stay stable, be polite, don't cause waves. You followed the map they handed you because you thought at the end of it would be safety, fulfillment, maybe even joy. But here you are, you've checked off the boxes, maybe most of them, maybe only a few, and the promised feeling never arrived. Instead, the emptiness grew louder. Carl Jung believed that the soul withers when it is forced into conformity that denies its true path. He spoke of the individuation process, becoming who you were meant to be, not who the world demanded. And yet, how often have you bent yourself to fit the mold, even when something in you was screaming that it wasn't right? How many times have you said yes when your body whispered no? How many dreams have you tucked away because they didn't fit the plan others imagined for you? The emptiness you feel is not laziness, not failure, not some defect of your character. It's the ache of a life unlived. It's the haunting echo of all the roads you abandoned to stay acceptable, to stay safe, to stay loved. And that ache will never quiet until you begin to walk toward the life that belongs to you, even if it terrifies you, even if no one else understands. Maybe that's why you sometimes feel restless for no reason, why you scroll through the lives of others and feel that tug of envy, not because you want their life, but because something in you remembers you once had a dream too. The dream may be buried under years of responsibility, fear, and compromise, but it hasn't died. It's still glowing faintly in the dark, waiting for you to notice. And here's the thing, you don't have to abandon everything to begin again. Sometimes reclaiming yourself starts small, Saying no when you mean no. Allowing yourself to pursue something simply because it lights you up, not because it's useful. Letting yourself disappoint people, if it means not betraying your own heart this time. The emptiness isn't here to punish you. It's here to remind you that you were not born to live as a copy. You were born to be something unrepeatable. And the only way the void will quiet is when you begin to walk step by step into the life that only you can live. And maybe this is the one that hurts the most, the eighth sign of why the emptiness never seems to leave. You've mistaken being needed for being loved. It started quietly. Maybe someone praised you for being so strong. Maybe they leaned on you and you felt valuable for once. Maybe you became the one who always listened, always fixed, always gave. And for a while, that role made you feel alive. But over time, you realized something was missing. People needed your help, your energy, your care, but did they truly see you? Or did they only see what you could provide? Carl Jung once wrote that the greatest tragedy is when a person identifies with a role instead of their essence. When you confuse usefulness for worth, you spend your life earning a place you already deserved simply by existing, and the result is a kind of hollow exhaustion, a life where you are always pouring out but rarely ever filled. Maybe that's why you feel invisible, even in relationships. You're there for everyone, yet when the silence falls, you wonder, would they still choose me if I had nothing to give? If I couldn't carry their pain, would they still stay? The emptiness isn't just loneliness. It's the grief of realizing you've built connections where your soul was never truly met, only your labor, your patience, your strength. But here's the painful beauty of this realization. Once you see it, you can no longer go back. You start craving something deeper, love that isn't earned, presence that doesn't vanish when you falter, connection that sees you even when you have nothing to offer. And that craving, as raw as it is the beginning of healing, because it means you're done with the illusion. You're done mistaking crumbs for a feast. And yes, it will feel lonely at first. Saying no, stepping back, letting some people fall away when you stop giving endlessly. But slowly, the emptiness begins to transform. It shifts from a hungry void into sacred space, the space where real love can finally enter. Because now, you're no longer begging for it. You're waiting, you're choosing, you're protecting your heart for the ones who can truly meet it. The emptiness has always been your truth teller. It has always known that love is not something you should have to earn, but something that simply is when you are seen in your full humanity. And when you finally begin to believe that when you begin to love yourself in the same way you've loved others, the emptiness starts to dissolve. There's a certain fatigue that seeps into your bones, isn't there? Not just tiredness from lack of sleep, but a soul-deep weariness. And that weariness points to the ninth sign of why you feel empty. You've been living in constant motion, but not in true direction. You wake up, you rush, you perform, you check off lists. The days blur together. Maybe you've built a life that looks stable on the outside, but inside it feels mechanical, as though you're running on autopilot, repeating cycles without meaning. And the more you try to keep up, the less alive you feel. Carl Jung once suggested that when the soul is starved of meaning, it rebels. It creates symptoms: emptiness, anxiety, despair, not to harm you, but to shake you awake. Think of it like this. Your spirit wasn't designed just to exist, to tick boxes until the calendar runs out. It was designed to live in alignment, to feel connected to something greater, to touch depth. And when you deny that, the emptiness grows as a protest. Have you noticed how sometimes, even in success, you feel numb? Or how a new purchase excites you for a few days, but the thrill vanishes quickly? Or how you can spend hours scrolling through other people's lives and feel nothing but a deeper hollow when you put the phone down? That's the soul whispering, this isn't it, this isn't enough. You are meant for more than endless distraction. But here's the gift hidden inside the void. The emptiness is not absence, but invitation. It's the inner call to pause, to breathe, to ask questions you've been avoiding. What do I truly value? What lights me up beyond achievement? What would it look like to live not just fast, but fully? It won't come all at once. Meaning doesn't appear like lightning. It grows like dawn, slowly, gently, with patience. It begins when you make space, stepping away from the constant noise, allowing stillness to stretch, listening for the small pulse inside you that says, this matters. Maybe it's creating, maybe it's helping, maybe it's love, maybe it's truth. You'll know it because it makes you feel alive in a way no distraction ever could. The emptiness is not your enemy. It is the compass waiting to point you back to yourself. And if you dare to follow it even step by step, even trembling, it will lead you not to more doing, but to deeper being. And finally, there's the quietest truth of all, the 10th sign of why you feel empty. You've been cut off from your own spirit. You've been living from the outside in, from roles, expectations, survival, performance. But your deepest self, the one beneath the masks, beneath the wounds, beneath the endless noise, has been waiting in silence. And when you forget that part of you, life loses its color. Even joy feels thin. Even love feels fragile. Even achievements feel hollow. Because without connection to your own essence, everything else becomes decoration without a foundation. Carl Jung once said, "The soul has its own logic." What he meant was simple. There's a part of you that doesn't care about money, status, or approval. It doesn't play by the rules the world gave you. It only cares whether you are truly alive. When you ignore it, you feel like a ghost moving through your own life. When you remember it, even the smallest moment, a sunrise, a touch, a breath, feels like enough. And maybe this is the heart of it. Emptiness is not a flaw. It's not proof that you're broken beyond repair. It's proof that your soul refuses to settle for half-living. It is your spirit's alarm clock, ringing louder and louder, saying, "Wake up, come home, remember who you are." So what does it mean to come home to yourself? It doesn't mean becoming perfect. It doesn't mean fixing every wound overnight. It means beginning again, gently, by choosing truth over performance, by letting yourself feel instead of numbing, by creating space for silence not as an enemy but as a doorway, by giving yourself the love you've always given others. It means realizing that emptiness is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your return. And maybe tonight, after this video ends, when the silence comes back, you won't rush to escape it. Maybe you'll sit with it for a moment. Place your hand on your chest. Listen closely. Beneath the ache, beneath the hollow, there is still a pulse. That pulse is you. Still alive. Still here. Still waiting. So if you've carried this void for years, let this be the reminder. You are not empty. You are longing. And longing is proof of life. Thank you for walking with me through this journey. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring these truths together. Not because you owe me anything, but because maybe you need a place where your heart feels seen again and again. Until then, breathe. You are not broken. You are becoming.